Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of the 100. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, picking up where the previous episode left off, it's like, oh, everyone from Bardo showed up in the middle of everything, and it's like, Gabriel's like, hey, Russell. He's like, I'm not Russell. It's like, Clark being like, oh, that's super not Russell. And it's like, oh, this is Shade Hater. And it's like, oh, crap. Then Bill's basically laying it down. He's like, honestly, I wish I could bring you guys into the fold, but I literally just don't have time for your primitive BS. So, all right. And then, like, his people open fire. They come out. They're no longer invisible. And it's just like Murphy being like, okay, lasers, invisibility. All right. Okay. I'm catching up. You know, so it's kind of like, okay, in that one instance, we took down this little, like, reign that Shade Hater had. I love that it was immediately squashed. So obviously Clark wants to look for Maddie, because it's like, all right, let me go check on Maddie first, and then the fact of the matter is I'll let you know, about the flame and everything. Because obviously, Clark, Murphy has to explain everything that's going down. It's like, yeah, they're in the reactor. They're what? It's fine. Honestly, it's ironic to say it's the safest place for them. But it's like, oh, happy reunions all around and everything. There was this line between Murphy and Raven, where Raven was kind of like, Shade Hater's back, and our friends and everyone's in the bunk in the reactor. So basically saying he did a bang up job, and he's like, our friends are missing. And, what was that other, thing? Oh, and Bellamy is, was it, I'm already misremembering, was it that Bellamy was a part of this? And he basically, like, double taps her with his fist, being like, basically, like, you did a bang-up job, too. Because it's like, I'm not the only one who kind of didn't excel in this situation. So I just love that little moment between them. But I also love when, like, Raven has to explain everything. And we're hearing, like, Murphy break down, like, everything she brought up is like, okay, he's like, so this is the dude who built the bunker that saved humanity twice, and now he's trying to find a way to basically turn us into beings of light. And she's like, yep. And he's like, well, is it crazy, is it weird? He's basically like, that the craziest thing about all of this is the whole Bellamy situation. She's like, no, because obviously that's the thing that's hitting everyone, just like, with Bellamy. And I thought it was really interesting because when they were walking, like, he's like, so this whole act, he's like, you look good, but obviously, like, he was saying, like, I think out of anyone, someone who's always kind of playing a situation, always trying to look out for number, like, he's like, you're not fooling me, you're acting, but he's like, this isn't an act, Murphy. The fact of the matter is, you might not understand this, but at the end of the day, you are my friend, and I want to save you all. And Doucette's nearby listening, so even then, I'm like, well, Murphy's able to kind of see through him. That's why I'm still like, there's still that part of me that's holding up hope that it was like BS, that, but obviously even the conversation, Bellamy has with Bill, it's a whole thing of, like, the fact is that he's struggling. And it's even interesting because Bill's like, oh, Doucette will make a good replacement for Anders, but the fact of the matter is he's not like you. Because the disciples, they grew up in this. They kind of have little choice in believing it, but you and me, we know the struggle. We know the struggle of having loved someone beforehand, and how that, combined with what you feel like is what is the best for humanity, being kind of torn in two different directions. Like, he's like, it's a struggle that only him and Bellamy can understand, because he even looks at Bellamy as him. It's like the thing of, like, having your friends hate you. He's like, but the fact is, he's like, if only they know what I know. Like, because, Bellamy saw those beings of light. So for him, that's enough, after everything, because that was that conversation about, like, what happened to you. And that's something they still don't quite know and understand. Like, what happened to him? He had a spiritual awakening, especially because for them, he's been lost for so long. Because, and I think when you look at it, probably, like, a lot of the characters feel that, but I feel like out of any of the characters, it's Bellamy and Clark that probably always felt the most lost. I think they've had things to kind of ground them, even though they've never, I think, fully fixed the loss of, like, being lost because of everything that they've ever had to do, all that suffering, all that pain, a way to kind of alleviate some of that. And especially in Bellamy's mind, it's like, not only am I alleviating my own pain, I know everyone else around me is suffering and is in pain too. I'm trying to alleviate, I'm trying to save them all. Like, at the end of the day, because he is talking like, oh, he is one of the disciples and everything, but even then, he's still talking from being Bellamy. It's like, you guys are still the people I care about. You are my friends. You are my family. I do love you guys. So I am doing this for you. So it isn't like it's clear cut with Bellamy. He is still struggling because they're hating and despise. It's like, I'm doing this for you, but you guys don't see that. But if I have to, like, carry the burden of your hate, then fine. But maybe you will change your mind when it's all said and done, you know? So at the same time, obviously, I really like the fact that Shade Hader got stabbed by Bill, and now he's bleeding out, and obviously Gabriel's taking care of him, but then he sees Josephine, and I was like, what the hell is this? I was like, what? No, I was like, this isn't making sense. And then it's like, oh, the Red Moon situation. I was like, right. I was like, dude, I was like, holy crap. That's so neat that they brought back elements from season 6 like that. Because I was like, I legitimately let that slip my mind. I was like, what? Because I was like, what? Why are you seeing Josephine? I was like, what? Are you going crazy? What's going on? It's like, right. The whole thing is you go crazy. And then on top of that, the bug situation, I was like, dude, I was like, right. I mean, can't forget that this planet comes with its issues. It's like, let's not forget that. Because it's so interesting, because I feel like it comes up, like, with Earth, I feel like the issues that Earth kind of had in, like, earlier seasons, like a lot of that earlier season stuff never really came back around, like the mutated wildlife and shit like that. Never really came up too much in the later seasons. So it's neat to have at least this planet's issues. It's like, no, this ain't just gonna go away. Like, and it comes back at the most unopportune time. I mean, you can make the argument maybe it all worked out for the best. I mean, I think semantics and all that. So I even love the situation of, like, because obviously, like, because of everything going on, Bellamy's like, all right, we should get you out of here. And Doucette's like, he's right, sir. We should kill the hostages and get you out of here. And I love Murphy being like, Bellamy didn't just say that little bit there you added on about killing us. I love that. Like, that. But obviously for Bellamy, it's still like, no, I'm trying to save my, because I think also in Doucette's mind is probably like, kill them, because at least this way Bellamy won't be as divided, I think. He can see that, like, Bellamy's being tested, it says, like, his loyalties is being strained a little bit, stretched. So I think that's also why Doucette kind of wanted to go ahead and do that. But regardless, back at the reactor, like, the fact is that Emori, obviously, Nikki ends up escaping. The kid from the Children of Gabriel ends up knocking him out when Emori cuts the power off. And so it's like, okay, you drop the shields so that the bugs will come in. So for her, it's like, okay, let the bugs be their issue. She's like, hopefully there's not going to be a third thing, even though there technically is a third thing going down at the same time. So at the same time in all this, like I said, you have, like, Gabriel tripping balls. He's seeing Josephine, and she's convincing him, like, basically, you be the one to take the test. Like, you open up, you take the flame, you're able to, obviously, you're the one who came up with the mind drives in the first place. You're the one that created that device on, Skyring, the kind of, that little makeshift device he made. So it's like, you can easily, recreate, the flame and everything. And obviously he's like, no. But for her, it's like, this could be your way of making up for all that you caused. Like, your need to kind of, like, extend life beyond death and stuff like that. Him, like I said, him creating the mind drives and the issues that created. It's like, this could be your opportunity to kind of make up for all that. It's like, you be the one to take the test and everything like that, or, the war, or rather the test and everything. So he's getting swayed by that. You can tell immediately because he told Jackson to take the antitoxin. And it's like, shouldn't you be the one to take it, considering the fact is you know exactly what's going on? But he's like, oh, I know how to deal with the toxin, so I can work under these conditions regardless. But it's also because, regardless of everything, he's still sad because it's that struggle. Like, Josephine was the woman you've been in love with for hundreds of years. Yeah, you've had your disagreements, but even when she died, you felt it, regardless of what she'd become. So being able to see her again, and obviously she's saying, probably, you can make the argument she's saying what your subconscious is wanting to say. because also it's like by getting the data off of this, he solves this great mystery, and it's like as a scientist, like you, and that's something I've always kept arguing. Like Gabriel's more so doing a lot of stuff out of like scientific discovery and stuff like that. Even to the point like Jackson was like, oh yeah, where's Miller, and where's Nathan, and she was even like, you don't even know who that is. He's like, Nate. He's like, Miller. It's like, right. Because obviously it's like, once again, letting you know, it's like, all right, remember, he's not necessarily tight with this group. He's tight with other people. He's tight with Hope and Echo because he spent so long with them. So, but obviously even then, like, he's an outsider to their group. Obviously, he only knows them through, like, obviously the meeting last season, him being, part of the leader of the Children of Gabriel and stuff. Like that's the only reason why. That's the only reason why, So it's just a little reminder, stark reminder of like, oh yeah, do you really know these people? Because even Joseph being like, you don't really care about these people. Why are you putting up this front? Why are you even worrying about healing, like keeping them with the toxins and stuff like that? I just thought that was interesting. So it's like everyone gets, to the reactor and everything, and so the guys that were in there, you actually feel bad because, one of them is the dude that turned traitor really quickly. He's the one that was kind of very, like, from up front, like, oh, there's no commander, like, bump this. And he ended up working with Shade Hater the moment the truth came out. So he was one of the 3 people devoured by the bugs. You kind of feel bad for him, but at the same time, it's like, would he have been swayed back over to their side or whatever? Super unlikely, but regardless. So he gets eaten by bugs. They show up. Clark's there, and it's like, let me see Maddie. I've got some antitoxins. I was like, oh, you got those. My immediate thought, I won't lie to you, my immediate thought was like, she did something to those, didn't she? But then why was she not? Because I was about to say, would you take the risk, like letting Murphy and Raven take them or not? That's why I was like, because I was like, oh, that's why there weren't any left. There were some left, but obviously she gathered them ahead of time, or not unless there were some stashed elsewhere. But I was like, but it's like, okay, never mind. You're just worried about Maddie and everything, so they get the door open. Everyone's reunited. It's like Murphy's like, whoa, it's the good guys, and he hugs Maury. Maddie and Clark hug, and it's just like, oh. And there's even this moment where Maury's like, hey there, stranger, you're looking good. And she hugs him, and he feels good for a moment, because for Bellamy, it's like he's so used to everyone he knows and loves hating him, and for Maury to hug him like that, it felt good. And it's just like, yeah, it felt good. And then it's like, she's like, oh man, you're dressed like a man who has a story. And then Murphy's like, yeah, what is that story, Bellamy? Come on, tell us. And then Bellamy's like, another time. Because, truth be told, I think for a moment he also doesn't want to deal with having another friend hate him, not, looking at him like he's crazy or something, like, so it's just kind of like, well, we're kind of under the wire with this situation. So Clark hands him the flame. What was interesting was Maddie being like, you shouldn't have given him that. And he's like, Clark's like, why? And she's like, I've been seeing stuff. So now Clark realizes, like, so if Bill ever finds out about Maddie, so it's like, okay, so I can't let him do that. And she's like, don't tell anyone what you've been seeing, because that's just going to make it so that Bill's like, oh, I need to use you. And obviously, if that becomes a case, like, it's almost coming full circle, too, because obviously, like, Clark never wanted Maddie a part of all this, tried her best back in Season 5 to get her to not be a part of all this, so it's kind of interesting coming full circle, making it so that she is kind of a part of this, that she's a piece to all of this. We've known that for a while, but now the characters are, Clark is kind of catching up to it now. She's the only one at the time who knew that, so... Then there was also the Raven situation, because obviously being back in a bunker, it brings back the memory. She hasn't been back in there since everything, so she goes, to turn the power back on, she put the shields back up, and as she's dealing with some stuff, Nikki attacks her, and it's just kind of like, I've got, before you meet the Grim Reaper, I want you to admit what you did, and she does. She's like, I killed him. Like, the fact of the matter is, I thought he'd be too scared to do what was necessary, so I locked him in there. And it was like, no, at the end of the day, they did what I was too scared to do. Like, I saved my own life because I was a coward. I was scared, and he was brave and he died, and it's my fault. So if you need to do this to make yourself feel better, go ahead, please. And then Nikki can tell, like, how much it's hurting her, and she's like, no, you're gonna live with what you did. And Nikki walks away, and then Clark Murphy and Emory see Nikki leaving the room, so they're like, shit, Raven, and they go check on her, and Raven's breaking down, and it's this beautiful moment of them all kneeling down there, being by her side, like, you know, and I thought that was beautiful, you know. It's this heartbreaking moment, but it's like, you're glad Raven's alive, but also it's like, you know, it's like she made a mistake, and once again, like, who in this group hasn't made a mistake, you know, the things that they regret, and obviously, like, she really, really regrets it, you know. I'm sure she wishes she could have done things differently, but it's just in that moment, it's hard to admit, like, yeah, you're scared, you know. I don't think that's always the easiest thing for people to admit when they're scared, you know, especially in that circumstance that her fear kind of let people die, you know. So I just thought that was just kind of like a beautiful situation in its own right. Then you had the whole Indra situation, because like the disciples are starting to go crazy from all this, and it's like, all right, it's like, you know, he's trying to say, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my enemy, and Indra's like, okay, first I'm gonna deal with the enemy of my enemy, and then I'm gonna kill my enemy. So she's slowly getting free, does her thing, kills some people. Hondu grabs the helmet. The last one grabs the helmet, turns invisible. Indra's dodging the laser. She's got the blade, but you know, Shade Hater helps her because he sees the bloody footsteps, and he's like, behind you. Indra swings, lops off his head. And it's just kind of like, and then Indra, like, because of everything, she's seeing her mom the day her mom kneeled before Shade Hater. And it's like, it's a very similar situation to Indra. Indra bowed to save Maddie's life, to save other people's lives. And obviously her mom dealt the same thing. It's like, oh, it's kind of Shade Hater being like, oh, you should have kneeled sooner, probably wouldn't have been on this death, you know? So it's just like seeing that, you know, it probably fuels her even more to try and kill Shade Hater. Gabriel and Jackson show up, and obviously they give her the toxin, the antidote to the toxin. And obviously she doesn't kill him. And I was like, the moment she didn't kill him, I was like, that's going to come back to bite you in the ass. I know it. You never want that fucker to live. Like, because he's a cockroach. He's just going to squirm his way back some shape or form. He's bleeding because, like, his lung was pierced, or kidney was pierced or something. I think it was his kidney was pierced. It's like, SOB's still going to find a way to survive. You know, that's why I'm like, you should have killed him. But I think for Indra, it's just kind of like, she wants him to suffer after everything. After all the death, all the children of Gabriel you killed, my mom, like, the history of Triku. Because he even made that remark about, like, oh, Triku would escape and die. And he was like, you think after all the attempts of escaping that they would have gotten better at escaping. And so it's shitty shit like that. So I don't know why I say that. Felt funny saying that shitty shit like that. Regardless. I was just like, oh, it's not a good idea to let him live. But, you know, it is what it is. So it is a situation of like, all right, so everyone's gathered up in that room. You know, Gabriel is like, oh, I can do this. And Josephine's still talking to him. But then, like, the code's happening and everything. But then, like, Gabriel starts going, like, he's like, no, we can't. And so he destroys it. And then he takes the, you know, the antidote to get rid of Josephine in his head. Because I think for him, he's like, because he knows the truth. Like, it's not just a war. Because I think for him, he's like, obviously this thing is a test, and he's like, none of us would pass, so that's why he's like, I'm not even going to take the chance. Like, it's like, I'm not going to let Josephine, my own ego, also like affect me to think like, oh, I could be the one to pass the test. It's like, no, none of us are worthy enough to pass the test, so I'm just going to lead to all of us getting damned anyway. So he destroys the flame, and obviously it's like, okay, guns are pointed at him, and so they're trying to, like, obviously, you know, Raven puts on the helmet to pick out where they're supposed to go to find their friends, but it's like, they can't, because the planet's locked off, and Bill's the only one who knows the code. At the same time, like, Doucette tried to make a move, and then, like, he ended up getting shot by Clark, and obviously it puts Bellamy in this position just like shit, and you know, Doucette's final words are don't lose faith, especially because it's like everything that they went through together too, so you know that hits him. So it was such a life-changing situation that they were in together. I mean, how Doucette saved his life, Doucette's faith and everything saved him as well. So it's like in many different ways Doucette saved him, so for Doucette to die in front of him breaks him a little bit, I'm sure, you know. So it's like, put it in the code, we're going to find all our friends, and you're coming with us. It's a situation, and it's like, Bellamy, you're staying behind. Everybody, let's go. Because also, the key factor in all of this is, oh, Gaia's missing too. Because once again, we haven't circled back to that storyline beat in a very long time of like, someone came and got Gaia. Once again, my thought at the time was like, it must be some time travel stuff. Somebody must have time traveled, knocked Gaia out because they need. I don't know. I don't know what to expect from that. I don't know what that storyline beat and reveal is going to be, but I'm like, that's why I felt like. But obviously, there's not technically any time travel involved in all of this because I mean, you're going to different places, but time works differently. But it's not necessarily time travel. But that's why I'm like, but I still feel like this might all eventually lead to some like full blown time travel, and that was somebody that might be Clark, like in that helmet, like fixing some stuff. Because the way the episode ends, part of me thinks we're going to introduce time travel so that Clark has the opportunity to save everyone, to change everything. Might be the case. This might lead to the test. It's like, okay, once you complete the test, you can kind of do what you need to do. So, I mean, maybe this is part of the test, maybe, whatever the case may be. I think that, once again, because that's always been the thread that I was like, whoever's in that helmet had to be doing some time traveling, and they did all that. They did whatever they did to the thing, as well as taking Gaia out in that regard of like not killing her but removing her makes me think like this is all part of some play or some plan in the grand scheme. So that's where I'm thinking. But obviously it's a thing of like, you know, for Clark it's like, you know, for her obviously how much this situation hurts because it's like this, you're my friend, you're my best friend really, and the fact that we've been through so much together, the fact is that you really have chosen the disciples over us because you made your choice. And for her it's like so much for us getting through this together. So she leaves, but then Shade is like, you help me, I'll help you, and he points to Maddie's book, and then Maddie, he opens up the book because he knows what they're looking for, and because the whole point was to cause a little dissent amongst them because what does he do? He's very good at getting inside of people's heads. But Bellamy sees it. He's like, Clark, we have to give this to Bill. And he's like, I'm so sorry. But she's like, I can't let Maddie be in danger. She's like, Maddie won't get hurt. He's like, I'm doing this to save you. I'm going to save Maddie. Like, all that suffering, it's over. Like, the fact of the matter is, he's like, look at you. You're willing to kill your best friend, you know, just to protect someone. So he's like, I get that. He's like, but the fact of the matter is, and he says that line of, this is our way to be better. Once again, it's that, those words from Monty. It's like, dude, this was supposed to be our fresh start. We were supposed to do better. Did we do better? Arguments, everything that went that last season, you could make the argument we didn't, but it's like, this is our opportunity. And I think that's also what plays a role in all this, because Bellamy's like, this is an opportunity to do better, to be better, a different situation. It does make you wonder under these circumstances, what would Monty say, you know? I mean, because you could make the argument, like, this is just like the City of Light situation. I mean, can you make the argument, like, is this really any different from that? You went through the struggle of stopping that. So, you know, I mean, once again, and it's all very reciprocal because Bellamy was lost at that time too because he was working on the Pike. Like I said, so it's a lot of stuff kind of coming full circle in that same regard. But for Bellamy, he's like, I'm doing, you know, what is best for everyone. I'm trying, you know, I can't, you know, it's like, he's telling the dude, it's like, protect this for Bill. And then Clark's like, she's like, I got to do what I got to do as well. And shoots Bellamy. I was like, shit. She kills one of the other dudes. There's at least one or two left. And she runs out of ammo. She jumps through the gate. And it's like, he's there bleeding out on the floor. And as she's crossing over, she's crying. Because it's like, because she never thought she'd have to do that. Like, be it like, you know, after everything that they've been through, like, yeah, I mean, think about where Bellamy and Clark started. They were at each other's throats but then eventually they came together to be like, hey, like, let's work this together. Like, you know, they became almost like co-leaders to like the 100 and just everything they've been through together, you know, reunited after everything. Obviously, season 5 put them at odds, but then like that kind of got repaired. You know, obviously they were a little at odds in season 5, but it's just like, you know, and just for it to be things right here and just like straight up looks like Bellamy is dead. I don't think he's dying. I don't know if anyone's going to be there to save him or anything, but that's why I'm like, that sucks. That's why I think we're going to get some time travel. So if not, Bellamy's straight up dead, and I'm like, I don't know if I see them ending his story there. We'll ultimately have to wait and see kind of how this all ends up playing out, but it's like, dude, we're down to the wire. I once again, I could be mistaken. I believe this was episode 13. Dude, we only got like 3 episodes left. It's like, where is this going to go? How is this going to end? I'm so excited to find out, dude. Like I said, we're clicking down to the final episodes, dude. I'm really interested to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.